to commence, I will do justice to a former news reader of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation who has written this invaluable book, Speaking of Africa. In the introduction, she says, quote, "When we are happy, we want to go home to mother. When we are sad, we want to go home to mother. Africa is home and mother. Her African children need to love her, and her African children need to nurture her. They need to respect her and to care for her. But first of all, they need to know her. This is just a drop in the ocean of knowledge that you can acquire about Africa." Unquote.
Who is she?
Madame Selma Hassan.
Fantastic.
Now, very brilliant and evocative words. Now, when we talk about the Black Star, it's about the black people, it's about Africa, and it will be very difficult, if not impossible, for anybody to attribute this to Madame Theodosia Oko. As I said, she acted as a tailor, as a seamstress, and Nkrumah brought the material, and then she put together. She did so well, putting the Black Star in the middle of the flag. And please, I remember in her last interview before she died, she said she asked Kwame Nkrumah, "Why don't we make the stars a lot, as we find in the American flag?" And Nkrumah said, "No, just one will do." So this alone should tell you that that concept is not her concept. It's a very ancient concept. We have the Black Star Line, the national carrier, shipping carrier. We have the Black Star Square, which is the national shrine, the Black Star team, and everything about Ghana is the Black Star. How do you get this? When Kwame Nkrumah left the shores of Ghana to study in the US, Lincoln University, that's where he met a lot of black scholars, and for the first time got the concept of the Black Star through the writings of Marcus Garvey, who wrote that one day all black children everywhere in the world will come back to Africa in a ship called the Black Star. And so no wonder when Nkrumah set up the national carrier, he named it the Black Star Line. Then Nkrumah would move from the US to the UK in 1945-46. And at the British Museum, Nkrumah had an opportunity of studying a very illustrious African called Anton William Amo, born around 1703 in Axim in Western Ghana, who was sent at the age of 3 years to Holland. The intention by the Dutch Reformed Church was to make this boy a priest, train him as a priest, and come back to evangelize his own people. There was nobody to receive Amo because they had decided to cancel that program of the Dutch Reformed Church. And the Duke of Wolfenberg in Prussia, Germany, today Germany, decided to receive Amo, and at that tender age, bring him up, train him, educate him, and see whether the black brain would function just as the white brain. So Amo became the guinea pig to find out whether blacks were good as slaves, or given the opportunity, we could flourish, function just as the white man. It just brings to mind Nkrumah's famous speech, Independence. Many people have not considered that it was just an extempore, unprepared speech, and still one of the most captivating speeches ever made, in which, apart from talking about Ghana's independence, he mentioned freedom of Africa and concluded on the fact that the black man was capable of managing his own affairs. That is the life of Anton William Amo. In his first dissertation, put in Latin, in those days, all academic work was in Latin. So the topic suited him as a black person, and at that time, all black people in the world were slaves. He was the only one being given education. So let us learn today that the first black scholar was Anton William Amo, a Ghanaian born in Axim in 1703. And he became the first black professor. So in the SHS and what do you call it? When they tell you the first black professor, and the answers end on Professor K.L. Buzia. The whole nation is making a mistake. In fact, at the peak of his academic career, as we find here being shown, dedicated by the Martin Luther University of Halle-Wittenberg in the German Democratic Republic to its former student and lecturer, 1727 to 1747, Anton William Amo from Axim, the great African philosopher of the modern age. Amo was a professor in 4 universities, Halle, Jena, Wittenberg, and Leipzig. Was a professor more than 200 years before Professor Buzia was born. And in his first dissertation, as I'm saying, it was De Jure Mororium in Europa, the rights of black people in Europe. Africa, in Europe. Thank you very much. Now, in it, Amo sought to castigate slavery, to condemn slavery through philosophy, law, and history. He argues that in the Roman Empire, sub-Saharan African kings were given special patents by Roman emperors, ending on Justinian, to show that Africans were a sovereign people. And Roman Empire contained the whole area of Western Europe. And so therefore, up to today, the Western part of UK are based on Roman law. So Amo's argument was that if your law is premised on Roman law, which recognizes the sovereignty and the independence and freedom of black people, and you could enslave black people, then philosophically you are making a mistake. And he also said that the study of freedoms and slavery should not be based on race or politics or religion, but should be based on people of equal history or shared history. And so if Africa was part of the history of Europe through the Roman Empire, then these people should be treated equally. And after delivering the dissertation, he was referred to as the Black Star. Why the Black Star? Because Amo was the lone fighter, and Amo was the only one throughout the world fighting. So he was the first to have started the fight against slavery by his pen. Now, apart from that, when Amo went to school, definitely you will fill your forms. They gave him the name of his benefactor, Duke Ulrich, his full name. So Amo's name was Anton William Ulrich. Now, Amo, because he was always conscious of his African origin, dropped the surname and used his own African name, Amo. And at the university, when he was filling his entrance form, stated Antonius Golemos Amo ab Azimo in Guinea. That is in Latin, meaning Anthony William Amo from Axim in Ghana.
One time.
So, more than 250 years before Ghana was independent, and to change the name from the Gold Coast to Ghana, somebody had referred to this place as Ghana. And that was the Black Star. Why the Black Star? Like Moses in Egypt, who did not feel proud to be a child of the Pharaoh, but never forgot his Hebrew roots. Amo also, having been given every bit of education, welfare by the German kingdom at that time, never forgot that he was an African. He came from somewhere and he will go somewhere. And he had been born into an era where Africans were being enslaved, and he had to contribute to the emancipation of the black person. This was a Black Star. Don't forget the fact that anytime Amo signed his name, apart from using Anton William Amo, he also added F-E-R. And Afel in the German language means African. So Amo was never proud calling himself a German, but rather an African. It is also on record that after his academic career had come to an end, Amo never stayed in Europe, but rather came to Ghana, where he died, about 1756 at the Shama Fort St. Sebastian. Amo would be called the Black Star because we know that Germany has produced more philosophers than any country in the world. Talk about Kant, talk about Weber, Nietzsche, Karl Marx, and a lot. But Amo was able to study philosophy and beat them in their own field. He was called the philosopher of the mind. It's Amo who propounded the theory that the mind should be called the spirit, because it is completely independent of and detached from the body. It is the body that is the area for sensation. The body feels for food, for sleeping, hunger, sex, and all other things. And the whole thing is processed in the mind. That is the intelligent part of the body. So the mind is insensitive to what happens here. So every human being is made up of two parts, not one part. He propounded that idea, and so they call him among the philosopher of the mind. So when Kwame Nkrumah studied about this, knowing full well that he was not just a black person, not just an African, but a Ghanaian from his own country, Nkrumah so much came to love Amo that he decided to eulogize and then epitomize the Black Star, which had been referred to Amo. Someone will ask, why did Nkrumah not make mention of it? He made mention of it implicitly in his book Conscientism about the exploits of Amo. But Nkrumah never told Mrs. Todoshi Okun or anybody that the Black Star referred to a famous African, simply because he and Amo were from the same area. And Nkrumah saw himself as a black man, as an African, more than a Zema. He was never interested in anything that would put him into the arena of tribalism. And so he left it just as that. And so Nkrumah put it in the middle of the flag for everybody to know that we have always been like the white people. When it comes to philosophy, their own field, we have beaten them before. When it comes to academic work, we can stand them, and Amo has proved it. And given the chance, black people are able to manage their own affairs. This was the speech given, which actually made Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, especially Martin Luther King, to go and deliver the famous I Have a Dream speech, because they listened to Nkrumah and heard him telling them that more than 200 years before us, an African called Amo had been able to do it, and we too, we can do it.
So that's the history behind the Black Stars. That's how you interpret it. What a piece there. Has your mind been blown? Put it back together and send me a message on 055 556 1034.